Well, I saw Loren Coleman's work very early on in my investigations, of course, and I corresponded with Loren Coleman to some extent. Loren Coleman effectively did very little work in the Bridgewater Triangle after around 1980, and so the majority of the sightings that I was investigating and the people that I was speaking to was stuff that had happened since that time. You know, I think it can become dangerous and almost Eurocentric just to focus on King Philip's War when we talk about Native Americans in the Bridgewater Triangle. People have lived here for a very long time, maybe as long as 12 or 14,000 years. And if we look at that vast gulf of time when Native people lived here, we see different cultures coming and going. Around 3,500 years ago, there was, many archaeologists believe, a massive population collapse here. Prior to that time, there were different cultures living here, and after that time, there was a cultural fragmentation. Nobody really knows why that population collapse happened, and it certainly seems possible that the various cultures that lived here prior to then could have engaged in a war that was maybe bloodier than anything that we've ever chronicled. It happened in prehistoric times, and no one will ever know what happened. When I travel throughout the Bridgewater Triangle and look at the evidence of Aboriginal occupation, most of the traces that I find, most of the artifacts I uncover, are between 5,000 years old and 3,500 years old. That was the time that there was a massive amount of people living here. So could they have somehow had something to do with the folklore, the legends, and the myth that have grown up around this place? I approach claims skeptically, and I think that as investigators and researchers, we need to take a scientific attitude towards the claims, towards the myth and lore about the Bridgewater Triangle. But at the same time, I really enjoy these stories, and to what extent some of these stories are really true or false, and to whatever extent the claims are myth or fact or fantasy or folklore, there's something about this area that makes these stories seem somehow believable. And I think that's part of the charm and allure of the Bridgewater Triangle that make it so interesting for so many people. In my work as a UFO investigator, there were occasions when I participated in hypnotic regression sessions with people who may have had UFO encounters that they couldn't consciously recall. This was incredibly frightening for me. Oftentimes, these people, many of whom lived in southeastern Massachusetts and had experiences within the Bridgewater Triangle, they would have only very vague memories of something that they couldn't quite understand, and it was felt that maybe hypnosis would help bring these encounters forward and help them to recall these things. The experiences of these people recalled under hypnosis were very terrifying, and watching these people under hypnosis, in one case, we hypnotized a woman who suddenly had bruises appear on her face without anybody or herself ever having touched her face at all. It was incredibly frightening. Another time we did a regression session with a man whose profession was a sound and recording engineer, and he had wired his living room where we conducted the session, he had wired it for sound. I had a tape recorder running, the hypnotist had a tape recorder running, the witness had a tape recorder running, and at the end of the session, we had 3 blank tapes, something that seems almost impossible. It seems almost impossible to attribute that to chance or coincidence. It was really alarming.